Welcome back to another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. My name is Greg Normand. We are lucky enough to have with us today Karl Kuspa, who is the Director of Sales and the Loft Manager for North Sales here in Detroit. Karl, welcome to the show, and I really appreciate you sitting down and having a conversation with us.
Thanks for having me here, Greg.
Before we get into the conversation, I just got to ask a simple question. This has got to be a tough time for all business, but this is the prime time for sailmakers, and I guess maybe you could talk about that, and I see from your facial expression that may be part of that.
Yeah, for our loft, and every loft is run a little bit differently, but for us, this is typically a very busy time of the year as it is, delivering new sails that were ordered and built over the winter, and delivering the service work that we bring into the loft back to the customers that had their winter tune-ups done. We cover an area all the way from the west side of Michigan to Rochester, New York. So typically during this time frame, even though boats aren't ready to go in the water, we're out delivering sales to our dealers all the way out to Rochester, getting that done before the spring rush. Now we're going to have an abbreviated spring. It's going to be chaos, and I'm glad that we have a great team here to get this all done.
Has the loft been closed from working like everything else?
The loft was closed, but we were fortunate enough to have the right type of work left, where we actually built out 2 mini lofts in our 2 service guys' garage. And so we had a lot of new canvas projects that were being built in one of the lofts. And then we actually had a non-sailing project that was about 3 weeks of hand sewing that one of my other guys did in his garage. And so we kept producing, as far as our service work, right. We kept moving on. So which was great. So
I'm curious. A loft, obviously, be able to spread out sales. Now all of a sudden you're in a confined area for a garage. That presents some challenges.
Yeah, well, like I said, mostly the building that was going on, or the work that was going on, was canvas work, building mainsail covers, building Genoa socks, stuff like that, binnacle covers. So they didn't take up as much of an area, so they were able to do that.
What are you doing what are you doing this spring to change the model? Everybody's changing their model. We're talking on May the 4th about junior sailing with UARA and trying to we have 50 kids. We can't go in the bathroom one at a time. We got to have a bathroom monitor. I'm not sure we're going to have junior sailing this summer because you can't keep kids 30 feet apart. It's impossible. That being the case, what's North doing? What are you guys doing to change your model?
Well, the one thing is, right now, as we talked about, that with this being an abbreviated spring and having so many customers to get stuff out to, we want to make this as easy as possible for the customers. So we're still doing our sale deliveries. I'm going to be focused on getting sales delivered out to the customers outside the area. But then here locally, we know that it's going to be hard. People are going back to work. They're not going to have as much time as their hands. They're going to be trying to get their businesses back up and going, plus get their boats ready. They're not going to be able to make it to the loft Monday through Friday. So we're actually, from now at least until May 22nd, our loft is going to be open 7 days a week from 8:30 to 4:30. We'll do evening appointments during the week, but you can come by curbside pickup from now until the 22nd. Call ahead, schedule it so we have the sales ready. Make sure your bill's paid. You come around back, knock on the door, and the guys will load the sales into the car for you.
I want to talk a lot about North education and off-season education, but I'm really curious. How did you get involved in sailmaking, and maybe where did it start for you?
So I've been in the marine industry pretty much my whole adult life. Coached junior sailing programs like your Crescent program, but I was at North Star for a couple of years, my last year of high school, first year of college, and then after my first year of college, I was asked by Gene Mondre, who owned an International 50, if I wanted to take care of his boat for the summer. I was like, wow, what a great job for a 19-year-old kid. Pretty cool. Jumped on it. And shortly thereafter, Gene purchased a One Design 48. And now we started traveling all over the country with the boat. And it was a year-round job, not just a summer job. Got a lot of great opportunity from that. And I have to say, I had some previous history of sailing. I was very active in junior sailing, and I grew up at Edison Boat Club where I was sailing 7 days a week. So sailing was in my blood. Anyhow, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did mom and dad sail?
Yeah, my dad was a sailor. My mom was heavily active in the club, but sailing wasn't really her thing.
So it was a platform to start with, where some folks come from platforms and others don't. But.
Yeah. My dad took me sailing. I guess mom and dad took me sailing, from I understand, on a Flying Scot when I was about a month old. So it's been in my blood.
For sure. That early days, one of the questions I like to ask folks is, do you remember that moment when it was sort of was hooked into it, that you knew this was going to be a lifelong avocation?
You know what? I don't. And I've talked to a lot of people over the years about this, because a lot of people who started later in life, even just junior sail, later in junior sailing, can remember their first experience. I've been doing it my whole life, so I really don't experience. And actually, don't remember that first experience. I actually joke with my dad. Used to joke with my dad that, they stole that from me. I don't remember my first experience of what got me hooked on it. So.
You grew up at Edison with it being taken down. Is there any sad memories on Edison going away?
Oh, completely. My dad's the current second longest tenured member of the club. He was a Commodore in 81. I mean, we literally lived at the club during the summer. We never owned a boat. We always sailed the Flying Scots, but every day after work, we went down there. We were sailing. We were working on the club. I mean, I spent my whole youth down there every day. So it was really hard. It's hard on my sister, my mom, my dad, all of us.
What was Edison sort of what was Edison really good at, being in where they are? I mean, they're in the middle of DYA, Bayview, and a lot of other. What was Edison's, in your mind? What was its first calling?
Well, I mean, Edison,
I know it's yacht club, but
yeah. Well, through my lifetime, Edison changed many. The club itself changed character a ton, but. It was very active in the DIY, and it was a lot of racing way back in the day. And they still have people that race out of it, but not nearly what they used to. But honestly, one of the things, they had an adult learn to sail program, which was called their novice program, before any of our other clubs had the adult learn to sail. I know Crescent has their adult learn to sail, Grosse Pointe Yacht Club, and Bayview, and they all have theirs.
Right.
I was 15 years old, so that would be 35 years ago, teaching adult learn to sail in Flying Scots at Edison Boat Club. So way before all these other programs came around.
When you go down and drive by it now, you just kind of have that feeling. It's like, where did it go? But it was, just so I know, it was primarily, you had to be a member or work for Edison. How was the connection?
Yeah. So it was a company-owned club. You had to work for Detroit Edison and then DTE, which had the gas company later on, but had to be an employee. And then probably 20 years ago, they made it if you were a offspring of a member. So I held a membership for a long time in my adult life, because my dad was a member there. So
we go from junior sailing into basically some sort of recreational racing, and then serious racing. And where did the sailmaking come in? Where did you kind of fit into there?
So after I left Gene Mondre's program with Leading Edge, my business strategy, what I did was, I didn't want to work for one person running racing programs, taking care of their boats. So I started working for multiple people, and people would hire me if they wanted to go to Florida for the winter with their boat. I would take care of it. I've got to California. I've been to the Caribbean. I've been to, all over the place doing this. So I'd have about a dozen customers going all the time. So I'm in front of a dozen people who buy sails. And I worked for a while, and this was probably 10, 12, 14 years ago. I worked as an outside rep for one of my current competitors. And so it was a perfect match. I'm selling sails to the people that I'm already running their programs on. So I did that for 6-7 years. And then it got to be too much. I was too busy with my other business. Fast forward ahead to almost 3 years ago now. And I get through what I called my hell month, Mackinac month, because now all my programs that I'm running are all racing the Mackinac race. And it was always a busy month. And get home from that month, which I didn't see much of my wife during it, and said to her, I don't know how many more times I can do the month of July. Literally the next day, I get a phone call from Kimo Worthington, who at the time was the vice president of sales for North Sales, asking me if I would be interested in talking to them about taking over the North Loft here in Detroit. So it was just perfect timing, and so I came back to it.
You've been with North for how long?
Just coming up on 3 years.
Okay. Been a good experience?
Yeah. It's definitely, I like what I'm doing. I really like what I'm doing. I've had a progression in my career where I was just working for one person, and then I started working for a dozen people. So you had to dealing with a bunch of different personalities, which I like that a lot more. Now I'm dealing with hundreds of people, which I like that even more, so plus still being involved with the sport of sailing.
North has how many lofts in North America, and then how many worldwide?
Oh, you know what? I don't know those exact numbers.
I'm thinking it was in the close to 200. Does that sound right?
200 worldwide. That sounds about right. Yeah.
About 125 North Americans, if you could consider the entire continent.
Corporate owned, there's not that many. Corporate owned, I'd say there's probably about 30, but then we also have the franchisees.
So you can buy franchisees for North. Is it? And then obviously you can't buy one.
Not anymore. No,
Okay.
The movement has been towards all corporate owned, and those that had franchisees license are grandfathered in.
A little bit like McDonald's. Now you have to be a McDonald's owner to buy another franchise because they want to keep the family smaller.
Yeah.
Consequently, it makes better business, and I get that point.
It's a lot easier to have consistency from loft to loft to make sure that you're taking care of your brand properly if they're owned by all one company.
Branding has been more important in the last 10 years than I ever remember it being. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I think that's because, do you have any reason why?
That's outside of my scope of education, but I have my philosophies, but no, I wouldn't.
Well, I say that, and I'll say this as a novice. I'll see a sail on a boat, and I'll see a particular manufacturer's logo. And I'll go, oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's not such a good one. Oh, that one's a great one. Oh, that one's terrible. And I have no idea if the quality is good, bad, or otherwise. As a novice, that may be different from somebody that's got more experience. But I think branding becomes part of that. And I think if you add to it, and here's my other question in this case, if you go through the North website, you guys are involved in a lot of stuff. You have an apparel division that rivals what used to be Hudson's. I mean, it's amazing what North has done beyond just making sales. And I think that's something that's helped the brand. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah. Well, so North Sales is actually the clothing division is actually a totally separate company from North.
Okay.
Just happened to be owned by the same owner. And it did a lot. And in Europe, North Sales clothing is huge. And I've been told that we actually sell more dollar amount in North Sales clothing. That company sells more than we sell in North Sales dollar wise.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's high end stuff. I mean, it's polo kind of clothing. It's not, you're not buying Walmart clothing. I'm not from that perspective. The only logoed sale hat I have I'm bald, so I have to wear a hat in the summertime. The only hat that I have that's of a sale company is actually North, and
cool.
They gave it to me or it ended up, and we wear it, and it works out well. I want to talk a little bit, just one question. What does it take to be a good sailmaker? And I guess the question is it the guy sewing it? Is it the material? How does not somebody selling sails, but what does it take to be a good sailmaker?
I guess that question would actually range from sailmaker to sailmaker, or from brand to brand, in all honesty. The way we're set up here at North, I'm the front line. I'm the outward facing. I'm talking to the customers. But behind me, I have this huge pyramid of resources to go to, designers and even just other people within the company with 40, 50 years of experience. I talked to Perry Luce in Chicago, who's been doing this for 40 years. I talk to him once a week and get information from him. So I don't feel that you have to be the most knowledgeable. You have to make sure that your best interest is taking care of the customer, which that's been my career, is taking care of the customer. And I'm not afraid to tell a customer, I don't know that answer, but I can get that answer. I can call this designer, or I can do this, or I can do that. So it's to facilitate, to make sure that the customer is getting the best product. On the service end of it, that's a whole different ball of wax. We've got service guys here, Bill Lesnick, who's been doing service for 40 years. Mike Stark, who's been doing it for 15 years. They've seen it all. They've done it all. And, I think that makes them one of the better service teams in the Great Lakes.
I bought new sales last year. I wish I had done the process differently. Didn't know as much as I have since I've interviewed some sale makers. And I guess my question to you is, we kept talking last year about cloth, and we're cruisers who like to recreationally race. And there was a spectrum as wide as Yugos to BMWs in reference to how many choices you had. And I can't believe there's that many choices in sailcloth, or are there?
Yeah, there's that many choices, and it's a matter of having the salesperson that will work with you and discuss the different options. I have customers that come in and say, I want this product, and it's totally not the right product for their boat. They're reaching for something just because it's Gucci, but the fact of the matter is, maybe their sales don't, their boat won't load up enough they're spending money for something that they don't need, that there's another product that works better for them. So,
without putting you on the spot, how many people come to you that buy sales know what they're talking about, and how many think they know what they're talking about?
Every customer knows what they're talking about, because they're talking about what they want for their boat. How's that for an answer? No, we actually have a lot of customers that really do their research and come in, and you can have a conversation with them, and there's very little education going on during the process. But that doesn't mean that they're doing anything better than the person who just comes in and says, I need to do sales, talk to me about it, and don't have any background. That's our job, is to educate them and make them feel comfortable with the purchase. So I very rarely get the ones that come in and don't know anything. So,
but if you've got a sailboat that large, you've done some work. You've had to at least have a clue.
Yeah.
I would jokingly say that I'm the worst sailor in DYRA, but the reality is I can sail without killing myself. So you have some knowledge. The other question is, what's a harder customer to work with? Somebody who's really knowledgeable, or somebody who is sort of in the middle that has a bit of information but doesn't necessarily?
I don't think that it's the amount of knowledge they have that makes them a harder or easier customer. I think it's more of the open-mindedness to suggestion and just an open conversation. Don't come
personality.
Yeah, don't come in dead set that this is the product. Sometimes they're 100% right. A lot of times they're 100% right. But be open-minded that if we say, maybe this is really based on what we've talked about and what you're describing, your usage you're looking for, maybe we should really consider this, and be open-minded to it, because I'll give you the reasons why we should be talking about that. So, but I'm also open-minded to what they're talking about. So,
who's easier, cruisers or racers? You might think racers because they know more. That's a hard question.
I don't think that there's any difference in the two of them. They both have their own separate needs. I don't think there's.
That's fair. What's hot over the last 12 months? What's the big thing in sales? And I say that I noticed that colors are changing. We're going to lots of black sales over the last couple of years.
Yeah, the black sales are definitely something that's changing. That's been happening over the last few years. We have our 3DI process, which no one else builds with, and those sales are black or gray unless you're doing a DAC round 1, and they come out in white. But really, in the last 12 months to 2 years, the biggest thing is these what we call our Helix Code Zeros. That's the big product, and there's other versions. Ours is Helix, and basically they're on all load sharing Loft type of sale. Those are getting really big, and I think those are going to be, just for cruisers and racers, are going to be the wave of the future of a type of sail.
North has been, and I kind of want to take a small right-hand turn here. North has been involved. Ken Reed is the president of North, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
He's been very instrumental in deciding that education, off-season education, especially in the colder states, is a really important part of the process. It's great marketing and certainly great branding, but it's also really informative. And there have been a number of classes here in Detroit. I know from talking to people in Chicago, some folks out east, that these classes are well attended. And is that a new thing? Is it something that's been around a while? And maybe talk a little bit about North's education.
Okay, yeah, North has a great education process. There's no doubt about it. But it's up to the individual lofts on how big they're, how much they want to jump into it. Some lofts really don't do much. Some do a lot, and it also depends on their area. Like here in Detroit, we have a couple of great seminar series. Individual yacht clubs that do theirs, and a lot of times they'll ask the sailmakers to come and talk about some aspect of it, whether it's ratings or whether it's sales or tactics or sail trim. Then you got the DRY that has their own seminar series, and I've even before doing the sailmaking, I was doing seminars on other types with that. I've always thought that if you're making money in the sport, you should be giving back to the sport. That's my personal opinion. So I made it a priority when I came into the Detroit Loft, the education process. And, we hosted in the winter before last, we hosted 5 seminars here at the Loft. And then we had 6 on schedule this year. Of course, due to the current situation, we had to cancel some. And, but we're also going out. I talked about how big our region is. I also travel to Bay City, to Erie, Pennsylvania, to Buffalo, New York, Cleveland, and do seminars at the yacht clubs throughout the year when we get invited to do so. So do our service guys do, and my dealers do. We all try to educate. But this year we changed our focus a little bit prior to the Corona issue. Is not everything that we hosted at the Loft had to be sailmaking. We were doing an epoxy seminar. I got Joe Parker up in Bay City, who worked for West Systems and retired from West Systems, who was going to come down and do a talk on that. We were doing a distance race strategy. We did the expedition. It didn't all have to be about sales, and that was because of last year's seminar, the feedback I got from last year's seminars. So we got a whole new idea of what we'll do again next year. So
I asked the question because Peter Eisler was here in town.
Yep.
I had a chance to interview him earlier, and I didn't realize that in interviewing him, he had a meteorological degree from college. And he said that he would never let anybody know that because it was just one of those little things that he wanted to keep to himself when he got to races, because weather obviously is dependent upon racing like anything else. I say that North seems to do a better job of education. There are lots of seminars in the summertime, but the kinds of people you bring in and the kind of level of knowledge you bring in is pretty cool. My follow-up question is, do you get more folks with somebody of name renown or just somebody that's got the information? Does it matter?
For us at the Loft, I'm always trying to balance, do a balance between. I don't want to talk about every subject because I know there's people that know stuff better than I do, like the Joe Parker for the epoxy. So I'm trying to reach out to the people that I've developed relationships over the last 30 years and get them in to help us out. It doesn't have to be a North employee talking about North sales. I just want to facilitate the best possible person for it. For the expedition, who was a better guy to do it than Eisler, who was part of the development of the program. So.
Right. I asked the question because of sailing, I come out of the lacrosse community, and you know a lot of people in lacrosse pretty intimately. Sailing, I can pick up a phone and have a conversation with Eisler and Jobson and some other folks that we've talked to. I would never get to talk to Bill Belichick, or I would never get a chance to talk to Tiger Woods. So it's a little different. It's a smaller world. I get that. But I also think that the shared information within this world is really terrific. One of the nice things about joining Crescent, thinking you know how to sail, and you start to hang around to talk to people like you realize how devoid of knowledge you have. We have an amazing level of talent and an amazing level of sailors in the Great Lakes. And in talking I've done this show, I'm sure we know about it, but I'm not so sure how much as we get more regional and get more national. I don't think people realize just how much is here. And I say that because there's people that are coming from other places outside of your region to buy from north, to buy from other. I think it's an amazing area. The southeastern Michigan is an amazing area for sailing.
Oh, I agree. And over the years, the amount of talent that's come out, first of all, we're the passion that the people in the Great Lakes have because of our abbreviated season. I've traveled all over the country racing and sailing and lived in a lot of different spots. And, when it's a 12-month-a-year sport for them, it doesn't seem like the passion's the same as what we have here in the Great Lakes. And then it's really cool that we have these top people coming out of the Great Lakes where we had this abbreviation, the Bora Galaris, the Stu Argos, the Katie Pettybones, George Pete. I mean, we got these guys that are way up in the sport. Then they came from a place that we didn't get to sail, half a year at. So it's really cool. So
I think most sailors are also one sport athletes. I don't think they spend much time, which I think where the education in the off season comes, because it's just that love of we got this displacement with ice. So either we'll look at ice boat or we're going to come to the North Loft for sails. So watching a documentary last night, and it was about the 77 America's Cup with Ted Turner, Ted Hood, and I believe, I can't remember the guy's name who was North, who started the company.
Lowell North?
Yeah, Lowell North. Yep. And there was a discussion that prior to the last challenge that neither Hood nor North would sell Ted Turner any sails. And there was this whole argument that he's doing very well with Courageous in June. And then the sales by the time they got to July were a little damp and it didn't work quite as well. And they started to lose a few more challenges. And he went to go buy some sails. And fortunately for him on his boat was Robbie Doyle. Okay. And so Doyle went literally into a garage and made some sails. They ended up winning the America's Cup. But this freezing out of between the three guys who were then challenging for the America's Cup to be the challenger, I thought it was amazing. So my question is, there's a number of lofts in the area. Is cutthroat today, and that's maybe a bad word, but is it as competitive today as it was when these guys were friends? In this particular case, Robbie Doyle was actually working for Ted Hood and had to go behind his back to make the sail for Ted Turner's boat. I thought it was an incredible story.
Yeah, no, that was an incredible story.
I want to take a little right-hand turn here. We've got this Corona thing going. We talked a little bit about sail making in the beginning of this interview. Any thoughts on this summer? Any ideas of where you say we're going to go? I mean, I see everything on the St. Clair network, but the reality to it is I'm wondering if we lose this thing. Because, one of the rules is you have to be on your boat. You have to be from the same home. Yeah. So what happens? I asked this question of Tim Profit. I said, what happens? Tim's girlfriend is going to end up being his nurse. He's going to get around it from a medical standpoint. But what happens if you're not from the same household and you're racing? That changes. Any thoughts? I mean, you've had some conversation with folks.
Oh, I've had a ton of conversation with folks. I've had conversations with organizers of different events and everybody. It's just such a huge question mark. It really is. There's people of the mindset of, and it's just like in the political views, and I don't like to be political in any ways. You got the people saying, open the businesses, screw it, let's go. You got the people that say, stay at home till we have testing and vaccine. Well, you got that same opinion going on throughout the sailing community. I think that there will be a lot more cruising, just people being able to utilize their boat. I have a hard time seeing how some of these races are going to be able to get run, but we're also in a different situation now than we were 3 weeks ago. So my wife and I can talk about this a lot. We had a long conversation about it yesterday because I take care of a lot of people in my family that are high risk, and as you and I have discussed off camera, delivering food, shopping for them, and all that. And my wife actually has health issues that concern us too. So we're really in depth on this. How do I go do sale checks? How do I go sailing with customers? Can she go out race? My wife has been racing for, she just did her 25th baby tobacco race last summer, so, how's this all going to go? It's a big question. I think maybe in the next 3-4 weeks, we'll probably have a little better idea of how this year's going to go. I like the fact that a lot of the races aren't canceling. They're pushing it down the line to give us an opportunity to still have these great events.
I asked the question because we've had to shut down a high school and lacrosse, college lacrosse season, and my players are disappointed. I've got friends who golf competitively, but okay, they can't golf for a while. Now they can get back out to play. But if you listen to the St. Clair Network and if you talk to anybody around the club or anybody that you know in sailing, these adults are almost like children in that they've got to get on their boats because of the passion that they have for it. I'm not so sure that passion involves many other sports quite the way that sailing does. Because, well, I can go play golf or not. If it's raining, I don't go. I see people sailing in the rain, that kind of thing. So I think it becomes crazier, if that's the right word, because the rabidness that they want to get out and sail, and I get it because I'm in the same boat that they are. The passion just comes with the territory.
Yeah, I just hope if they opt to go sailing, they're looking out for themselves, and once again, going into something that's not sail making, this is a disease that's taking lives, and there are things that we can be doing, and you can go sailing. You can take 2 couples out on a boat and go sailing and stay away from each other enough to be, in my mind, but a crew of 9 hiking on the rail at this point, from what we know, is not what we should be doing. So
how much fun sailing does a president or sales manager for a loft, when you do the business you're in, typically you do less of the sport that you're involved in? How much sailing do you actually get to do in the summertime?
Oh, I sail a lot. How much do I sail on my own? Not much. And actually it's been like that even before I was doing the sail making, just with my career. It was like everything was a paid job. I was out there sailing for a job. So last summer, I actually decided that Bayview has a Thursday off the dock jib and main series, and I've got a Cal 25. And last year I said, all right, the 8 or 10 nights that are the Thursday off the dock, those are days off for me. Those evenings are off for me. I'm not sailing with customers, my wife, my friends, and that's my time to go. And I really enjoy sailing all the time, but I never have control over who's going to be on the boat and all that stuff. And I can go sailing with my buds.
Your Cal 25 fleet is a really interesting group of guys. John McAllister is my neighbor. We're dock buddies. And
yeah.
John is, he's got me enthused to be a better racer, and he's giving me hints all the time. And he's apparently a very good Cal 25 racer.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
And he's as enthusiastic at 45 or 48 years old as any 16-year-old kid I ever saw go and play a Friday night football game, which I think is
he's a great champion for the sport and for the class. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I guess what I want to finish this thing up with is where is North headed in terms of its corporate ideas, or in terms of Detroit? Do you see anything revolutionary on the horizon in terms of sailcloth, or anything that might be new that you guys are talking about, sort of privately in business meetings? Where's the world of sailmaking going?
I know that there's some stuff that's in the works. That's one of the things about North, is that our R&D is up there. We dedicate a lot, because of the size of our company. We dedicate a lot to that. I think they had a couple of things that they were hoping to introduce throughout this year. Not so sure they're necessarily going to happen with the situation that's going on. So, but there's some good things coming on down the pipe through North Sales.
If somebody bought sails that are new and maybe doesn't like them, you guys have a service where you'd come out and look at them, and then maybe look at the value of a sail that, and maybe recut it or fix it, or do you do those kinds of things? Consult?
Yeah. So we do that in multiple different ways. I like to try to sail with my customers before they even purchase a new sail, so that we can see what they have on the boat. Sometimes we can just give a tune-up to the sail, change the luff curve or stuff like that or retension the luff tape or stuff like that to make the boat or get another year out of the sale maybe. And a lot of times it's nice where you can even start talking about, okay, well, based on your inventory, this is a replacement program that we can talk about, so that you're not 2 years down the line all of a sudden needing to buy 3 sales right now. Maybe we tune these up to get you a couple of years out of them, and then we buy, this is the one that you have the direct need for. Then after the fact, we like to sell with the customers. We want to check and make sure everything fits and everything's good. And yeah, we stand behind it. If the sale's not right, we're going to make sure that we get it right for you.
How long should sales last? Now, that's an open-ended question, because I know that racing is short-term and cruising is long-term. But for the average guy, and I'm not talking about the high-end racers, how long should a sale last for a guy who has a 30-foot boat and cruises Lake St. Clair? I mean, what's typical?
But even then, it's a hard question to answer, because does that person? But here, I'll go into my spiel. Does the person sail 30 days a year? Do they sail 50 days a year? Do they prefer to sail in under 12 knots of breeze, or do they like being out in 25 knots of breeze? The fact of the matter is that, and then you also talk about how long is the sail going to last. Is it the fast life, or is it the material life? Because sails change shape over time, but the material is still not destroyed, but it's not as efficient of a sail. But in general, let's just go that sails now compared to 10 years ago, you should be getting, 30% more life out of them.
No, and here's the reason I asked the question, and I think this is a very valid question. And I mentioned earlier, I'd gone through the sale process. The information you just laid out, it isn't as simple as just go, I need new sales, let's go get this. It's a very complex discussion. It's a very difficult formula until you have all of the information. Like you said, how many days, what kind of weather, what kind of, I'm racing, I'm cruising. And I think sometimes most of us don't get a chance to ask those questions because we don't know. And that's your job to inform us. And I think some lofts do a better job than others. I went a particular way because I got the answers that I thought I needed, and I had a price point. And I think that's also part of the discussion because, and here's the other question, how can a sale for the head sail on my boat go from a low of 1,500 to a high of $6,000? And they're all supposed to be cruising sales in the same sort of general area. And I think that for non-racers like us, I think that's a legitimate question. Because who do you buy from?
Yeah. And a cruising sale, 1,500 to $6,000, that's a pretty wide range, but there's the quality of materials, the Dacrons, for cruising, let's just say we're talking Dacron, the quality of Dacron that's going into the sale is going to help. My feeling is almost all sailmakers can make a good sale coming out of the box, right? Everyone has pretty good designers, but it's how the sail is built, the materials that are put into it that gets the longevity. That all those sails are in 1 year are not the same as they would be out of the box. As far as when I say everyone can build a good sail out of the box, so it's the materials and processes. I can see a wide range when you go from a low end Dacron sail to maybe to one of our 3DI molded Dacron sails. Definitely.
Well, and I mentioned it again from just a novice standpoint. If I had it to do over, if I was sitting in the same seat today, and I got them delivered last April, I would have completely gone a different direction, which means I would have called you, and I'd have bought my sales from something local, and price point would have been in the ballpark. Sometimes you do not knowing, and that's so. I'm saying that is that there might be somebody watching this program going, guys, do your homework, pick up a phone and call somebody. And I can't tell you how many people that came over to the boat when we first pushed the sails up and went, asked some questions, and they were dumber than I was in some of the questions they were asking. So, and if I'm a complete idiot, that's my point is I don't know people from what my experience has been really pick up the phone and take the knowledge that you have and the expertise that you provide. And I think one of the things in this interview that's pointed out is that you want it to be right. You're not selling widgets. You're trying to make sure that, you have a long-term customer.
Yes.
And I think that's the part of maybe there's some folks that are slick willies in the business and there are people that are trying to do the job. And I think that's kind of the point. So,
yeah, I don't plan on going around disappearing from this for a while. So, reputation, my name, making sure that I'm giving good customer service so that, you buy your cruising sail last April, when you need your new ones again in 10, 12 years, there's only going to be one person you want to call. That's me. So.
Well, listen, I really appreciate the conversation. We're trying to flesh these out, give people information, and I will put the North information up on the site so that if you got a chance to call. So thank you so much for the interview, and let's hope we're all back on the water sooner than later.
Great. Yeah, let's hope. Thanks a lot, Greg.